The Man on the Moon. By Glatimere. I need to write this down, not just for my own sake. Of course, I don't expect anyone to believe me, but maybe it'll help others not make the same decision that I'm about to make. I'll start off on the night I first saw him, the Man on the Moon. It was my second week working in the observatory at the Headlands International Dark Sky Park in northern Michigan, and the work was already getting to me. When I applied to the place, I didn't expect to get hired, but according to them I was the first one on their list out of the hundreds of applications, so they chose to interview me. To say that I felt like I didn't belong there was an understatement. There were most likely people that were leagues more qualified than I that were waiting to get hired here, and I only applied here on a whim because I lived close by. Being in my fourth year of college with a major in astronomy and a minor in astrophysics, I somewhat knew what I was getting myself into. Most of my job would consist of giving the same boring lecture to people coming to the Dark Sky Park, while the rest of it would involve doing some imaging in the observatory we had at the park. The observatory part was the thing that interested me the most, but I had to push through the hours spent giving these scripted lectures to the guests. At around 3 a.m., most of the guests left, and all we had left to do was start our observation run of the moon. The head researcher, better known to me as my boss, wanted to do some research on the lunar surface close to where the Apollo 11 crew landed. To be honest, the entire crew was excited for this project, and 2 co-workers and I were lucky to be the ones to start this project with our boss. Our observatory was as state-of-the-art as they come, equipped with 2 massive screens to watch the imaging that the telescope takes, a kitchen just outside for us to make any late-night snacks, a few cots for any napping that needed to be done, and several rolling chairs to ease the boredom. With the imaging started, there wasn't much left to do but wait and make sure nothing went wrong with the imaging. Most of the night was filled with conversation between my coworkers and I, and the occasional nap on the cots. "Who wants to go on a snack run with me?" my boss asked. Both of my coworkers eagerly accepted the offer, but I had eaten recently so I declined. My boss told me they would be back in a few minutes, and she added with a grin to keep an eye out for anything weird on the monitor. She was always making dumb jokes like this, talking about aliens popping up on the monitor whenever you turn your head. It never got old for me, unlike my coworkers who always groaned when they heard these jokes. Just to entertain her, I decided to actually watch the monitor until they got back. God, I wish I would have gone with them on the snack run. I turned toward the monitor and watched the barren gray landscape that it was focused on. That's when I saw it. Something was moving on the monitor. My eyes were glued to the screen as I watched this thing move closer and closer to the Apollo 11 lunar module. Details became clearer the longer I stared in horror at it. It must have been massive to be picked up so easily on the camera, as the flag that was placed by Neil Armstrong wasn't even visible enough to make out any details. The thing was obviously humanoid, with gangly proportions as if it was starving. Its skin was pale, and almost blended in with the lunar dust beneath it. Before I could make out any more details, it turned its head upward straight towards the telescope, straight towards me. Hollow eyes stared back at me, and then it opened its gaping maw and whispered directly into my head like a conscious thought. "Stargazer, what are you doing down there? Come, join me." I screamed. Wouldn't any sane person do the same? My boss and coworkers came sprinting back from the kitchen, asking me immediately what happened. All I could do was point shakily at the monitor before finally passing out from fear. The last thing I remember before completely losing consciousness is seeing the thing boring into my soul with its gaze, before it finally made its exit outside of the screen. White lights pierced my eyes, and for a brief second I thought that maybe this was the literal light at the end of the tunnel. Reality came crashing back to me in an instant when I realized I was in a hospital. My heart began to race, and the rapid beeping of the heart rate monitor did nothing but increase my anxiety. Hey. It's okay, you're okay," my boss said. I didn't realize that she was sitting in the chair next to me. Most likely she was there the whole time until I woke up a few hours later. A nurse came rushing into the door at the sound of my monitor, but my boss assured her that everything was fine and that I was just in a bit of shock. My boss turned back to me with concern on her face. "You okay, Ed? You gave us a real scare back there at the observatory," she said with genuine concern. "Yeah, I think I'm fine. What happened exactly?" I asked. "Doctors say that you had a panic attack and passed out from hyperventilation. They said that something real terrible must have spooked you." Memories of the man on the moon, no, the creature on the moon flashed past my mind, those hollow eyes still waiting for a reply to join it. I quickly snapped back to reality and realized that what I saw wouldn't be explainable to my boss unless she or one of my coworkers actually saw the thing too. It was worth a shot to ask her if she had seen anything, even if it meant looking insane for the briefest of moments. "Yeah, I thought I saw something on the monitor, But maybe it was a lack of sleep. I hear that sleep deprivation can make you see things, I said rather unconvincingly. Well, we checked back through the images taken, and we noticed that the images taken while you were alone with the monitor were corrupted. None of us saw anything on the monitor when we came into the room, we were all too focused on you passing out, she said. That meant that there was a chance that this was all real. I'm not sure if it was fear or excitement, but my blood began pumping, and my heart rate monitor began beeping quickly again. Before the nurse came again, my boss walked into the hallway and told her that everything was fine. When she came back in, she had a certain look about her, like she was about to make a tough decision. I'm taking you off of the team, Ed, she said. You won't be allowed back into the observatory again until this project is over. What? Why? I blurted out. I think that you have a lot of stress that's not being addressed, and it's getting to you. You're majoring in astronomy while also minoring in astrophysics, and on top of it you're taking summer classes and working late nights here. That's a lot on your plate, kid. I know that you have to be competitive in this field, but you have to take care of yourself too. She sounded just like my parents, and that defensive side you take when arguing with your parents was beginning to bubble up in me. Luckily, I stopped myself before I said anything nasty, and I only bowed my head. I understand. I'm sorry for scaring you guys like that, I said. She rubbed my shoulder and said, when the next project comes around I'll be glad to welcome you back into the observatory, but for now you need to take care of yourself and your studies. Little did she know, I planned on sneaking into the observatory when the imaging was completed, and use the telescope to contact whatever that thing was. I had to know, no matter the cost to my psyche. My plan was rather simple, but it was all I could come up with. The night that I was assigned to do the presentations for the guests, I would hang around after they were all gone and wait for my chance to sneak into the observatory. Any imaging that they needed would be done by now, so it would just be my boss in there every other night with a coworker analyzing the data. The plan was to go in on a night when there was no one in the observatory and turn the telescope on to see if I could spot the creature again. Thankfully, my boss wouldn't have moved the telescope away from the spot we were looking at before, so all I had to do was turn on the live feed. I knew the risks of being fired, of course, but my need to know was too strong. A few days after being discharged from the hospital, I received a call from my boss letting me know that I was good to come in tonight to do presentations for the guests. The night couldn't have moved any slower, but eventually my opportunity came. With my presentations over, I waited patiently in my car parked close to the entrance of the park for everyone to filter out. Once I confirmed that everyone was gone, I drove down the dark winding path through the mile stretch of woods to the observatory, glancing nervously at the full moon any chance I got. The observatory came into view, and I got out and used my employee key to enter. Why did that thing want me to join it? Is it even real? What questions am I going to ask if it talks to me again? These thoughts raced through my head as I set the monitors up in the empty observatory. The monitor clicked to life, and I was once again greeted with the same view that fateful night. My breathing grew unsteady, and my palms moistened with sweat, but in spite of my fear, I finally mustered the courage to speak. Is anyone there? I said, jumping a little from the echoing of my voice bouncing off the walls. Minutes that felt like days ticked slowly by while I awaited my response. I was just about to call out again until I saw it. The same creature had come into view, staring up, or down, from the moon into my eyes. Stargazer, you've returned, it whispered in my head. An intimidating pressure weighed down on my body, making it difficult for me to keep my head up toward the monitor. I powered through the dread and blurted out the question I subconsciously knew I needed to ask it. What? Are you? Several seconds passed before it finally said, Stargazer, I am the man on the moon. I've been watching you for a while now. Ever since you looked up at the moon, and thought to yourself maybe I can go there one day. Yes, little you with a dream. When everyone thought you couldn't make it. Your family convinced you to study the stars, but you wanted to ride them. I fell back, the pressure now too overwhelming to stand up. Yes, you wanted to ride them, but the further you got into your studies, the more your dreams were twisted and malformed from its original essence. Reality chewed you up and threw up the new you. Always doubting, never committing, convincing yourself that you aren't good enough. You know that reality is right. You actually aren't good enough. Not smart enough. Not courageous enough. Not charismatic enough. Not anything enough. I was crying at this point. Everything the man on the moon said was true. I'm not good enough. My dream was to one day become an astronaut, but my parents convinced me that astronomy was a better path for someone like me. I tried to minor in astrophysics, but I have to work 3 times as hard to do even remotely good in the classes, and I don't have the willpower to continue. Did you just come here to tell me what I already know deep down? I screamed out through sobs. That's when it grinned. A grin only a demon could make. There is still a way to ride the stars, it rasped. I watched as it held out its hand and a flame appeared. The color was both light and darkness, both void and salvation. Follow the torch, stargazer, and there you will find the portal to fulfill your dream. I'll be waiting for you. In the blink of an eye, the feed cut off completely, and I was left alone in the observatory. The same flame that the man on the moon was holding appeared floating in the doorway, and enticed me to move towards it. I followed it on autopilot, completely numb to whatever was going to happen next. The flame led me outside towards the nearest tree. It extended and morphed quickly into a noose and wrapped itself tightly around the sturdiest branch, and through the noose hole like a portal, I saw him. The man on the moon staring back at me with those hollow eyes. Behind his lanky figure, I saw the lunar surface, so close and so beautiful. I reached out, ready to wrap the noose around my head, ready to join him. My body was slammed to the ground suddenly, and the flame disappeared instantaneously. All that was left was a polyester rope tied into the shape of a noose, and a police officer on top of me. Before I could get my bearings, I heard a voice whisper to me. The flame will always be with you, whenever you're ready to join me, stargazer. Later, I found out that my boss had called the police that day, thinking that she had seen someone mysterious enter the park. After I was released for trespassing, I was put on suicide watch, and was fired, of course. It's been a few months since then, and I've dropped out of college. My life collapsed around me month by month, but none of that matters now. I plan on joining the man on the moon today, and achieve my dream of becoming an astronaut. Thanks for listening. The link to the Reddit post are in the description below. And don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.